Alright, Bruchim Aboyim, welcome everyone. We are about to begin a very interesting video where we are going to look into this from Nathan Slifkin. The anguish of Kivalevitsism. A rabbi debates the phenomenon of Slifkinism. I know everyone would like to hear from me about Trump, but I'm scared to talk about that because of YouTube, although I'm wearing my Trump hat today. When I heard about the verdict, I started laughing, and then when I was thinking about it later, I started crying. But in any event, that's not really what I want to talk about today, but rather bring to attention, first of all, a great podcast in general. Meir Einei Chachomim, I believe it's called, where my very dear friend, we'll talk about it more, Harav Kivalevich Shlita, has very interesting conversations with one of the most colorful characters of the frum world in the past 40 or 50 years, Rabbi Meir Schiller. And definitely more interesting conversations than Rabbi Kivalevich and I had when we were speaking on the podcasts, and we're talking about reviving the podcast. But nonetheless, here we are. So on the podcast recently, Rabbi Kivalevich and Rabbi Schiller brought up the subject of this Rabbi Slifkin. And they called it from soft to tough, that when he was Natan Slifkin, he was a nice guy, and now that he's Natan Slifkin, he's gotten to be kind of a meanie. And Rabbi Slifkin goes on a long rant here against my very, very dear friend, Rabbi Kivalevich, probably one of my best friends in the world, is Rabbi Avram Kivalevich, and he's one of the greatest Talmidei Chachomim that I've known in my life, and a well-rounded person, and just all around an Isha Shkoilis, Isha Kol Boy, and someone who I love and admire very, very highly. And with all due respect, Rabbi Slifkin is not someone who I respect very much for personal reasons. I remember as a child, as a youth, I enjoyed reading Rabbi Slifkin, and when I went to go learn in Or Sameach, and I heard he was lecturing there, I said, oh, this guy, he's interesting, I want to go hear him. And he was just extremely rude. He had the whole class laugh at me because maybe, all right, I said something stupid. But I'm a young kid who just, 17, 18 years old, just came to Yerushalayim, not knowing much. And he embarrassed me in front of the whole class. So, yeah, I embarrassed myself. I tend to do that. I tend to sabotage myself. But I think this time I was actually being kind of quite... at least, for an 18-year-old kid, insightful. Was I believe the subject was evolution and creation and so forth. And I pointed out that if you look at the obvious errors, I don't believe this today, but this was something that I thought was interesting, the obvious errors of geological history as science claims. You have first the Precambrian, various eras, which there's the Azoic, I believe, and then the Proteozoic, and I think there's one more, an Archaeozoic, maybe Archeozoic before Proterozoic. No, the other way around. And then you have the ones we know, the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. Those are the ones that are more. So there's, I believe, 3 Precambrian eras, and then the Paleozoic, the Mesozoic, and the Cenozoic. And so if you look at it that way, the 5th one is the Mesozoic, which is where there was the dinosaurs. And the 5th day of creation was where Vayivra Elokim es Taninim HaGedolim, that God created these giant reptiles. And then the next day of creation would be the Cenozoic, in which there was the creation of the mammals and of man. Not only that, but in the 5th day, you also have the creation of the birds. And also the birds developed in the Mesozoic. What's the days? Okay. So, according to science, although mammals also developed in the Mesozoic, or even possibly, certainly their roots would go back to the Paleozoic, but in a simple, 5th grade level paleontology, it seemed to be a nice, as we'd say in Yiddish, a Zustand. And I mentioned this thesis of mine, and Rabbi Slifkin laughed at me, said it's ridiculous, and had the whole classroom there, whatever, 15, 20 people, all laugh at me. They're all gonna laugh at you. I don't know if anybody remembers that Adam Sandler. They're all gonna laugh at you. That's how it was. After and listening to the things he said, my feeling was this was well before. This would have been 2000, 2001. It's over 20 years ago. So I think he became more. There was a Kol Koreh against him, I think, in 2005. And Zoy's Gevain, and that was the Maisa Darton, my personal experience with Rabbi Nathan Slifkin. So, please excuse me that I'm a little tired. If you want, you can play the YouTube video at 1.25 speed or 1.5 speed. I'll talk a little faster that way. I'm not offended by that. So anyway, and I don't edit these videos. This is just my own ramblings. So, Rabbi Kivelevich, he said, it's not nice that the way he spoke about Rabbi Berkowitz, this and that. So I know, I think Rabbi Berkowitz is actually from Eshet Torah, I believe, and I have a lot of ideas about this whole discussion here, and mostly that first of all, and I'm driving also, and I'm tired, and I'm upset about a lot of things, upset about my own stupidity, and but sof kol sof, I'm trying to get some attention here on YouTube because it seems that people learned about Rabbi Kivlevich's podcast because he talked about Slifkinism, and so maybe Rabbi Slifkin will then write a blog post about me, and therefore we can, I'll get some more attention and maybe get some more subscribers that way, because That's the way you have to do things. You have to get attention, right? If you want to be famous, right? It's the story. You look back at the video I said with Professor Benjamin or Professor Alexander, I think, and Bishop Fulton Sheen, where this Professor Alexander said, you have to say crazy things to get famous, And Fulton Sheen said, let's make a Chavrusashaft and we'll learn Aquinas or something, One of my friends claims that Aquinas was had teachers who were like first generation students of the Rambam, but we'll leave that for another time and place. But anyway, the tenor of this whole discussion seems to be that Rabbi Kivelevitz, really, and knowing him and loving him as one of my best friends, is a Yid who embraces the entirety of the Klal Yisrael, and he somewhat poseach al shtei asifim in a good way, that he finds the perfect balance right between the Haredi world and the modern Orthodox world, respects them both, doesn't really fit into either of them, kind of like me in a certain way, and kind of like a lot of people who I would know, Reb Zevlef, I would say, would be someone like that, who kind of rides right in the middle of those two worlds. And that maybe he wouldn't agree to that, but and he's more or less, what I think we'll all agree, he's a Torah Yid, and that's who he is. And the politics don't matter as much as the Torah. And he's a Oyev Yisrael Ad Ma'od, not only ideologically, but in reality. He's Ma'orev Ben Abrios, which my Rav, Rabbi Fishbein Shlita, extols as a very high virtue to be Ma'orev Ben Abrios, and he's a Bal Chesed in every which way. More than a Bal Chesed, he's an Ish Chesed. It's just who he is. Kishmoi Kain Hu, he is Avram. He is an Avremel. But I'm going to talk about something that I know he doesn't agree with, and certainly Rabbi Slifkin is not going to agree with. And this will get hopefully his attention, and he'll write a blog post about me saying how horrible I am and what a phony I am and whatever, this and that. And just like all the times that what's the guy in Florida attacked me, and it got me more views and more subscribers, Yaron Ruvain. So we'll make a new foe here with Natan Slifkin, talk about my ideas. So, in general, I the way I look at the problems with both the Haredi world and the Dati Leumi world is they insist it's my way or the highway. Which, interestingly, the Satmarov did not accept. Satmarov said like this. He said, archetypically, the Vishnitzer Rebbe says all the other Rebbes are wrong, only I'm right. The Belzer Rebbe says all the other Rebbes are wrong, and only I'm right. The Square Rebbe says all the other Rebbes are wrong, and only I'm right. And the Satmar Rebbe says, Satmarov says, I agree everybody else is wrong, but I'm also wrong. Colorful way of expressing a very deep idea is that the Torah is the Torah, and people are people. And we try our best to reach the Torah, but we all fall short, and we just try our best. And so we divide into these different camps. And we recognize, these different ideas. But Sof Kol Sof, that's the world. All right. So, and the reason I'm saying is like this. So on one hand, you'll have the Dati Lumi world and the Zionist world in general. The way they look at the Klal Yisrael is that Klal Yisrael is Medinas Yisrael, and its supporters who are Jewish in whatever way they identify as Jewish throughout the diaspora. That's the Zionist approach. The standard Haredi approach, saying the Aguda approach, the Aguda approach is basically that Aguda is the Klal Yisrael. And maybe they'll also accept the Satmar as long as they toe the line with them. Why am I saying like that? So a few years ago, if people remember, they called the Kinnis Klal Yisrael, talking about everyone should go. I think it was in Madison Square Garden or Shea Stadium. I don't remember where it was, or where the Giants play in Jersey. I don't remember where it was. The Meadowlands. Jets play. The Giants play. Miman of Shach. They said this is a Kinus Klal Yisrael, and Malkiel Cutler was spearheading it. They're a Shiva from Lakewood, from this Medrash Kavoah, and he got Zalman Leib, Satmar Rebbe from Brooklyn, to go along, and he wanted very much to get Rebbe Teitelbaum, Satmar Rebbe from Kiryas Yoel, to also join it. And Malkiel Zolkazunstein, he said to Satmar Rebbe, the whole Klal Yisrael is in this. So Satmar Rebbe from Monroe said, Rebbe said, so Chabad is also going to be there. And Reb Malkiel Cutler said Chabad is not part of the Klal Yisrael. And it would seem that if Chabad is not part of the Klal Yisrael, so in the eyes of Reb Malkiel Cutler, then Kal V'chomer YU is not the part of the Klal Yisrael. And whatever else, Young Israel, whoever else, they're not either, Maybe not, it's hard to say. And they're also not participating in this thing about, that the internet is bad. I think both sides are wrong. The Klal Yisrael, to me, I look at it the way Rav Ovadia Yosef looked at it, because the halach is B'chal Shabbos before Hesi Ari Hu Goy L'chol Davar. That's a halacha that someone who publicly desecrates the Sabbath is not part of the Klal Yisrael. And Rav Ovadia Yosef had a very liberal view of what that means. Is that as long as a person says Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos, which they say in the Reform temples and the conservative synagogues, it's part of their liturgy too. So even, and certainly a person who drives to an Orthodox shul, even a modern Orthodox shul, even an open Orthodox shul, and they say Musaf, or they say Amen to Musaf, or they say Kiddush at home, and they're not driving to shul, and they're davening at home, or whatever it is. They in some way recognize Kedushas Shabbos, that it comes from the B'nai Shalom. That's who's part of the Klal Yisrael, and that's where I draw the line for me. And I believe that that's the halacha. That makes the most sense to me. And so you could be Zionist, not Zionist, you could be this, you could be that, you could be Reform, conservative, certain other groups too. I don't only mean the Reconstructionists, but not the atheists, not the humanists. And then you're part of the Klal Yisrael. That's how it works. You recognize Kedusha Shabbos, that it comes from the B'nai Shalom, that's enough to be the part of the Klal Yisrael. I want to talk about something different then. Rabbi Slifkin calls his blog Rationalist Judaism. Now, people know I align ideologically when it comes to Zionism more or less with Satmar, maybe to the left side of Satmar, told Avram Yitzchok, that I'll respect those we disagree with, that they're also Gedolei Yisrael, and just, all right, we follow our way. But I was contemplating this yesterday, and I realized like this. I said, if I followed my emotions, I'd be the biggest Zionist. To me, the rationalist approach is anti-Zionism, and the emotional approach is Zionism. Emotionally, I'd be the biggest Kahanist. But I think about it, and the Moich is Shoylet Alev at least sometimes. And from my rationalist point, Samarov used to always say he felt he would be more matzliach he'd be more successful with his views about Zionism with the yeshiva world than with the Hasidic world, because the Hasidim just blindly follow their Rebbes. But the Litvaks, they listen to a svara, they listen to logic. And he feels that his arguments are logical and not Hasidic, but just plain Torah. And he didn't demand people should listen to him because he's a Rebbe, the way it works in Lubavitch or Karlin Stolen or Square, but rather because he's presenting a svara and it makes sense. And the truth of the matter is, at least to me, very sadly, is that October 7th proved that Zionism doesn't work. Because everyone said we need the state of Israel, all the Zionists say, we need the state of Israel, we need the IDF, we need this to prevent another Holocaust. And they weren't able to prevent that. I'm not saying that they knew about it, they didn't know about it, I don't know, I'm not getting into any conspiracies. I'm just talking about very plain, simple, all those over 1,000 Jewish martyrs would still be alive today if they lived in New Zealand or in Arizona or somewhere else, and there wasn't a Medinas Yisrael, and there wasn't a Zionist movement. Zionism kills Jews. I don't care about the Fakistinians. I don't believe in any such thing as a Palestinian. They were all Jordanians and Egyptians. The only ones who were really Palestinians are the Jews who were forced to Shmad, who were forced to convert to Islam, which happened in the 1890s. After Herzl started his movement, it got the Turkish government very angry, and then it happened in 1929. So you have the Quds tribe of Palestinians who are from Yerushalayim, Jews from Yerushalayim, and then you have the Hevroni tribe of Palestinians who were Jews from Hebron. So the Quds tribe were ones who were forced to convert to Islam in the 1890s, and the Hevroni after 1929. This is history, this is a fact. You look into the DNA of Palestinians, they are Ashkenazi Jews. A lot of them. The ones who are not Jordanians and Egyptians are Ashkenazi Jews. So, but I don't believe in I think Gaza should go back to Egypt, and if Egypt doesn't want it, then Israel should take it back. I support Israel as an American because Israel is a valuable ally to the United States of America, but not as a Jew. As a Jew, I find Israel puts Jewish lives in danger, and I believe that's the most rationalist view. But I understand the emotions. I was a big Kahanist when I was a kid. I understand the emotions and why that upsets people. But rationally speaking, the anti-Zionist Satmar view, Brisker view, is the one that makes the most rational sense. I'm not talking about the anti-Semites and the self-hating Jews who call themselves anti-Zionists, who are leftists and communists, and those people are not part of Klal Yisrael. Even they say Baruch Atah Hashem Mekadesh Shabbos. But in Zera Hamisha, even though the dress with the Streimel and the Bekasha, they're more rationalist. It's not really a Hasidic thing. Yes, they practice folk religion and devotion to saints and things that the rationalists would have problems with. But when it comes to the Zionist issue, in a certain way, the Sitra Achra made it that the anti-Zionism was associated with Haredi and Hasidishkeit in order to blind people to the fact that it's the most rational view. And it makes the most sense. And it makes absolutely no sense to go put all your eggs in one basket. Yaakov Avinu divided his kids, like the Ramban said. He didn't put them all in one place. Because you put all the Jews in Eretz Yisrael before Mashiach is here, before there's world peace. Chas v'shalom. How quickly nowadays, with the technology that's existed since the 1940s, I'm not even going to mention what Iran could do, chas v'shalom. And now with millions of Jews there, and they're all in a state of sakona, and it's what I don't understand is instead of waking up, people are double downing on Zionism. And to me, it makes zero sense. I don't understand it at all. It is the most irrational thing that I can think of, because it's not how any of this works. So, but it is, because that's just how people feel. And the interesting thing is, Rabbi Slifkin, he points out that Rabbi Schiller, he taught in YU, but Rabbi Schiller is a very strong anti-Zionist for that same reason. Because he's a rationalist, because he's a Hirschian. Not because Square has nothing to do with, they stay neutral. So it's not because he's a Square Chassid. Square says you could be Zionist or anti-Zionist or non-Zionist. They don't care in Square. They specifically stay away from that question. And you have, I don't really think like real Zionists in Square, but you have both non-Zionists and anti-Zionists in Square. And that's a personal decision for a Square Chassid. And Rabbi Meir Schiller is very good friends with the most extreme people from the Torah Karta, but they don't like him. I like him, and I don't really like them. But I think they're very wrong in their approach to things, on particularly their attacks on the Gedolim that they disagree with. And but whatever it is, Sof Kol Sof, the most rationalist thing and the thing that'll be the safest for the Jewish people of all kinds, whether you're part of the Klal Yisrael in the way we discussed or not, is to get rid of Zionism. Zionism is more of a threat to Jewish safety. It's like Satmarov said, if you have an arsonist who wakes up his victims so he looks like a hero, they don't know he started the fire. That's what Zionism is. And again, I know other people are going to be disagreeing with me. But with that being said, I'm also pro-Israel. But I think Israel should be less Jewish and more just a state of its people. And the Rabbanut should be privatized. And they should have just religious freedom. Or I think the way that it'll work really the best would be federalism. Divide Israel into at least 5 states. Some of which could be Jewish states and religious states, because they would not be a national entity of a malchus, but rather they'd be state and local governments, which could be a Jewish government, halachically speaking. And then you have one central federal government with a constitution and a Bill of Rights that protects the religious freedom of all people, and not a Misrada Datot, the way that they adopted the British model, but rather Jeffersonian model. I got to go to work. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.